Welcome to this week's episode of eThekwini Matters. My name is Zimbili Mazibuko, your host. eThekwini and the province of KwaZulu-Natal have been experiencing numerous storms and heavy rains recently. These storms have caused severe flooding and damage to infrastructure, impacting communities and causing loss of life. Today in studio, we are joined by Dr. Luyanda Mafumbu, Deputy Head of the Climate Change Department. Sigbingelele sikwamukele on eThekwini Matters, Dr. Mafumbu.
Thanks, Zimbili, Diabulisa Nam, to you and your team.
Can you explain to us what is climate change? Is it real?
Yeah, it's a simple question, and it can also be complex as well, because climate change, someone would say, is a change of weather and climate which has been happening, driven by natural processes. But when we talk about the climate change which we are talking about now, is a climate change which is linked to global warming, which is causing a lot of disasters and havoc across the world as we speak today. I think that is the climate change we will be talking about today, which is linked to global warming, because climate change can change due to natural processes, such as your fluctuation, such as your orbital processes, such as your natural processes that drive climate change. But there's this one which is specific that we're dealing with in this present day and age, which is linked to global warming. I think we'll talk more maybe as we go on as per what are the drivers and the causes.
Tell us about that. What causes climate change? For someone who resides in Umbumbulu, or someone who resides in Inanda, who wants to understand exactly what causes climate change, how can you explain to that particular person?
Yes, as I alluded to Zimbini, before industrialization, because maybe we must use industrial era as a cut-off time to understand climate change and the drivers of climate change. Climate change have been changing even before industrial era, but ever since industrialization, climate is changing at a drastic level. We could attribute two factors. One, the natural factors, which would include your volcanoes. They can drive climate change because they also emit energy into the atmosphere. But on the main driver of climate change is global warming. Global warming, it's associated with us as human beings, polluting the atmosphere by emitting pollutants such as your carbon dioxide, methanes, and others, which are called the greenhouse gases. And these greenhouse gases, they create what is known as the greenhouse gas effect. The greenhouse gas effect traps the energy that's supposed to be radiated back into the atmosphere. When the sun is hitting the Earth's surface, then the energy is supposed to be re-radiated back into the atmosphere, but it is trapped by these gases which are closer to the Earth's surface, and by doing that they are adding heat into the Earth's surface, and it makes it to be more warmer. But over and above that, these gases also affect the ozone layer. The ozone layer is a layer that is between the sun and the Earth's surface. Now, they've got an effect in terms of destroying the ozone layer. They make it to be a little bit thinner and thinner. And then when it's getting thinner and thinner, the level of penetration of these sun's rays is a little bit higher. Therefore, you've got two now effect. The sun is coming at a high rate without the ozone layer trying to to prevent it. And you also have the greenhouse gas effect, whereby the sun that is supposed to be, the energy that is supposed to be emitted back, it remains here. Then the whole thing causes the temperatures now to increase, which then drives a lot of climate-related disasters which we experience today, such as your heat waves, your drought, your floods, and other related disasters.
So what are some of the climate-related impacts that we will see in Durban?
I think already as eThekwini, we do have climate change strategy. We've done climate change projections in terms of vulnerability assessment. We know that there will be increase in frequency and intensity of floods. We will experience those more often. And then there will be increase in drought. There will be sea level rise up to 1 meter, and that is going to expose a lot of infrastructure as well as development along the coast. And we're already experiencing floods, but the one that is dominating the region are floods, of which even the president on the previous president State of the Nation address emphasized that if we don't deal with the floods in KZN, they are likely to undermine economic gains and our development aspiration. And it's one of the consequences and the effects and the manifestation of climate change that we are likely to experience more often in this part of the region. But maybe we'll talk about why the region is so prone to floods, but I'll leave that to you.
We've seen or we've experienced a lot of floods over a short period of time in eThekwini particularly, and it seems to be happening every year now. Maybe let's look at what drives these flood events and why is eThekwini prone to floods?
Yeah, thanks a lot, Zimbili. I think it's a combination of different factors. The first one, it could be natural factors, the setup of the area. I think if we can talk about the topography of eThekwini, KZN in general, it's dominated by undulating slopes, where you find that the settlement is located on the valley side and on the bottom of the valley. And then when there's downpour, the rain, heavy rain comes, then the water comes at a very high speed, carrying the load and destroying a lot of houses, as well as those infrastructure that are at the valley bottom, such as your roads, your stormwater, your water and sanitation infrastructure. That's topography. Then another factor that is making us to be prone to floods is geology. The soil type of the region makes us to be prone to floods because it does not have high resistance in terms of rainfall. It's a loose soil. Even if there's less we can do except to improve in terms of our planning. And another one beside the geology, it could be the hydrology. There are about 18 rivers that flows through the city. That is called the drainage system. And you can imagine these rivers coming into the city as they are going to join the ocean. But what would happen when these rivers are full to capacity, are overflowing? Then it would mean that they are driving a lot of flood-related catastrophe. Then other than that, you will also have factors such as the climate of the area, because we're in the eastern seaboard. Then our climate is influenced in the main by the warm Mozambique current, which makes the area to be too humid. And there are also other climatic drivers such as your Karoo flow and your cold front that is going to drive the disruptive rainfalls which South African weather services have already warned us to take place today and tomorrow. But other than the natural factors now, that is something that is natural. There are also human factors which are related to development, socio-economic. One of them is that we are prone to disasters because the storm water drainage system that we are having cannot cope with the current challenges that we are facing of climate change. I think you might have heard Mayor saying that the current stormwater drainage system is not designed to cope with the current flood year event that we are experiencing. It was designed to cope with the weather pattern of yesteryears, but now we are in a situation whereby the chances or the probability of floods taking place has actually increased, and the intensity, meaning we need to adapt our stormwater drainage system to the reality. But again, the maintenance in relation to stormwater drainage system, it's something that could also drive or encourage these floods if we do not maintain our drainage system. But in the main, the drainage system, I mean the stormwater drainage system, get blocked during the floods, and when we check what is it that is blocking the stormwater drainage system, in the main it's solid waste as well as alien plants, meaning you have the informal settlement that are located next to river courses, where there is a lot of solid waste that is dumped illegally. Then when it's rain, it is dragged into our stormwater drainage system and it clogs the system. Couple that with the alien trees, which are also pulled by the streams when the rainfall is heavy and the river banks are collapsing. All those, they contribute to the situation. Other than that, we also have a challenge of informal settlement, people who are building houses next to riverbanks where it's not designed, it's not supposed to have human settlement. And all those things are the factors that contribute to the situation that we are facing as the city, which we need to make efforts to ensure that we deal with those.
Now, Dr. Mafumbo, what lessons have we learned as eThekwini from the April 2022 floods?
Yeah, I think April 2022 was a wake-up call, of which one could have said we should have woken up far back as 1987, because a similar storm took place in 1987 with similar impact. But from 1987 to 2022, what did we learn? But the 2022 one, I think it was a serious wake-up call. I think we've learned lessons, Zimbili, that one, if we do not do anything about our stormwater drainage system, we are likely to experience the same effect as it happened in 2022. Hence, there are a lot of efforts which are being made to ensure that we improve our stormwater drainage system, because it was found to be one of the areas where we were vulnerable. The second one, I think we really we learned a lesson that we need to deal with the housing, human settlement issue. This proliferation of informal settlement into environmental sensitive spaces such as your coastal, such as your flood plains, we really need to deal with it in terms of relocating these communities in these places, and in terms of raising awareness to communities that they need not to build in those places. But we also learned a lot in terms of preparedness and proactive measures in terms of rolling out the early warning systems so that communities can be made aware in advance of these instances, because in 2022 we're overwhelmed to an extent that a lot of research indicate that we could have done better in terms of transmitting awareness messages to communities, and as well as disaster preparedness, of which we are trying to improve on those, more especially on the proactive measures, to improve and to strengthen our early warning capabilities. Yeah.
What is the city doing to mitigate and to adapt against climate change?
Yeah, I think that is where we really need to tell people about programs and projects that we are doing. Maybe to start with the mitigation side, because these are two pathways which, as the city, we're supposed to employ in order to deal with climate change. It's it's not either. We should adapt as we mitigate. Yeah. Under mitigation, because mitigation is about reducing your carbon footprint, taking some preventative measures where you can. I think under mitigation, we are rolling out a number of projects. One of them is energy efficiency, where we make sure that we deploy energy efficiency programs such as retrofitting, rolling out smart meters, so that we can reduce the carbon footprint of the municipality. Because I said when we started, the contribution to climate change is carbon that we emit into the atmosphere. Even us as the city, we do have our contribution in that, because the electricity that we are using as the city, the electricity that we distribute we sell to communities, is the electricity that we get from coal-based power, of which we really need to change that by making sure that even in our operations, we try by all means to improve energy efficiency, of which we're doing that energy efficiency program, and we've been doing that since 2011, assisted by Department of Minerals and Energy, and more than 120 million have been spent to improve our energy efficiency. And I think I should say it's one of the programs that is performing very well nationwide, the energy efficiency program of eThekwini. Other than that, we're also rolling out a renewable energy program under municipal independent power producers, where we're trying to ensure that in the grid we also, because remember the energy policy or trajectory of the country's energy mix, that you cannot entirely rely on one form of source, which is coal-based, of which now we're trying to introduce IPPs in the system. And I can tell you, Zimbili, that the city is one of the forerunners in as far as the municipality to introduce the IPPs in the energy mix, of which we are doing well in that regard. Then other than that, we are also under transport. They are trying to roll out EVs, electric vehicles, so that we ensure that our fleet is not depending on the normal combustion engines, which also contribute to this, of which what we can control, I think we should make sure that we take mitigation steps. We're trying there as well to ensure that we introduce the EVs in the system, so that we improve our greenhouse gas emissions. Then there are also projects under waste, where we promote recycling, because remember, waste as a sector also contribute to this, because waste is emit methane, which is one of the greenhouse gases, and the recycling that is taking place there, waste recovery, waste to energy, and there's a lot that is taking place in that space. Then under adaptation, there's a lot that we are doing in terms of deploying a nature-based solution, ecological infrastructure, whereby we are rolling project in terms of catchment management, removal of alien plants, cleaning of the rivers through the program which is called the TRMP, Transformative River Management Program, which has been a success story in the city, and other municipalities are replicating it because of its success. And the program also integrates the environmental champions within it, because we have to drive change through citizen science, people participating in finding the solutions, of which is one of the success story in terms of integrating communities in finding solutions. But another one is that we also deploy early warning system. One of the success stories that has been published, people can see it, the likes of University of KwaZulu-Natal have done some work with regard to publishing the success of the early warning system that we are piloting at the place that is called Quarry Informal Settlement. In 2022, the success story about it is that as much as a lot of life was lost in 2022, about 440 something odd people were lost, but in that community, the story is that no single person died because of drowning, maybe due to floods, because of the early warning system which we are piloting in that area, of which the lesson is that if we can upscale early warning system to other places, that could save life. But it's one of the success stories that we have in as far as adaptation.
What role can communities play to adapt to climate change and to mitigate?
Yes, there's a lot. We need communities. We cannot do it without them, because they are at the core phase of climate change. We need communities in terms of one, being the environmental champions where they stay, in terms of being the agents of change. We need them in terms of sending the message of environmental cleanliness, because one of the contributing factors to this thing is illegal dumping of waste, of which we need community to assist us not to dump waste illegally, because it ends up clogging the system, and then we complain about the municipality at the end of the day. Then we also need communities not to build houses in wetlands and flood-prone areas. Even the community leaders, they can assist us in terms of ensuring that we try and prevent stuff that we know that it can be prevented, because most of the people who end up, the life that end up being lost, are those people who are already at the next to water bodies, the streams, of which I told you that when they overflow, what happens? The communities that are staying next to those, they suffer, of which we need communities to assist us, to get involved in small actions such as recycling, as well as participating in programs such as the one that I spoke about, the early, because it's not just the early warning system, it's a community-based early warning system, meaning it is linked to communities, to their cell phone. But to transmit information, you need community leaders, you need agents, you need environmental champions. We need communities to participate in those, and we need communities to be on the alert, as well as to raise awareness that among themselves, that when it's raining, when it's heavy rains, downpours, you don't need to cross the streams, to take risks and so on. like now we know that there is the warning that has been issued, and disaster information centers, management centers transmit the information, but community leaders must also assist to ensure that the information is transmitted or is shared to their communities.
Dr. Mafumbu, it was a pleasure having you in studio today.
It was a pleasure, Zimbili. I hope to speak to you again. Thanks a lot.
Very soon. Thank you very much. That was Dr. Luyanda Mafumbu, Deputy Head of Climate Change Unit in eThekwini Municipality. My name is Zimbili Mazibuko, your host, and from myself and the rest of the team, it's goodbye. Until next time, don't forget to like, to share, and to subscribe.